Today we talked to Bonnie, and she tells us how she revolutionized her industry by adding an after-school program to her dance studio. Welcome back to today's episode of Clicks and Bricks, everybody. I'm super excited about today's show. We've got Bonnie. She's the founder of a dance studio. She's done some really innovative stuff with her dance studio. After 20 years, she really found a new niche. But before we jump in and bring Bonnie on, quick note from our sponsor, MyGoSite. Today's episode is brought to you by MyGoSite, where you can build funnels and website all from one location. Easy to use, drag and drop builder. Build your first funnel today. Fully customized checkout experience, 14-day free trial, no credit card needed. All right, and today we have Bonnie Sita from East Bay Dance Center. How are you doing today, Bonnie?
Oh, I'm just great, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited about the episode. We had a great pre-interview together and found a lot of similarities in our businesses and things like that. Not my business at Clicks and Bricks, but one of my other businesses. And we just had a really great time. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how you got, let's talk about and start with what about your business instead of your founder story. Let's talk about just what is East Bay Dance Center, what do you do, and kind of a 50,000 square foot view of what you guys do over there.
All right, great. Well, so the East Bay Dance Center is a 30-year-old. We are actually organized as a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and I'm the founding director and the executive director. And we basically teach kids life skills through dance. We build more confident kids. We help kids to discover their own sense of creativity, their own self-expression. And really our goal behind this isn't necessarily to create professional dancers. I know some dance studios set out to do that, but our mission is more along the lines of helping kids to discover something that they really love, that's going to keep them physically active, where they're going to be engaged with other kids. I always like to say, get them off the screens and get them into real life. So that's our mission, is to take any child age 3 on up through adults and give them a encouraging, nurturing, supportive environment in which to explore dance and to explore themselves as a dancer.
Fantastic. So, and you're the founder and currently the executive director of the dance studio.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about, and I know you made some pretty big transitions and I want to wait for that, but I want to talk about what were you doing before? Is this, has dance been always in your blood, or is this something you jumped into and started like that?
Right. Well, that's a pretty interesting story too, and I think that has a lot to do with like why I feel the way I do about dance, because I always loved dance from being a young child, age 3. I can remember learning to skip, and now I teach kids to skip. It's pretty great. But I did dance for a long time, but then I also was pursuing more of an academic career, and I wanted to go into I actually wanted to become a school counselor or do something in the psychology field. And I got a master's degree in educational psychology. But after doing that, I still wanted to dance. So I kind of went back into studying dance again as an adult. And then I formed a dance company and I started teaching dance to make money, basically, but also so that I could be, close to my love. I was driving around teaching at different studios here and there and like running my dance company. And then I just got this idea, why don't I just get my own studio and start my own studio? It could be a home base for the company, and then it could also, I can consolidate all my teaching efforts. So I had no idea what I was getting into because I had never run a business.
Right.
So then a lot of people can identify with that. You start something that you love. And then you go like, oh my gosh, I had no idea all the things I don't know and that I need to know very quickly.
Absolutely. As a first-time brick-and-mortar business owner, there's the gap of things that you don't know yet is huge, right? But you learn fast, very, very fast. And things like fire marshals and building inspectors will teach you very quickly about what you need to be doing.
Yes.
So don't worry about knowing everything you need to know before you get started. The world will educate you on everything you need to know as you get through it.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. But this experience of being a shy child, I didn't mention that part either. I loved dance, but I felt like I wasn't good enough as a dancer. I always had this feeling like, oh, I'm not going to make it, or, and I grew up in New York. So when you grow up in New York, you're already in the creme de la creme of people. And I just didn't have anybody to boost my confidence or stand behind me or say they believed in me or anything. So, so I had to do all that for myself. So I taught myself how to be more confident. And then, I realized that pursuing dance is a way to become more confident, and not just confident, just become more capable. So I've built all that into our organization, our core values, and the way we do things.
Right. I'm sure it helps. I don't know if boys have this issue as much as girls, but the body image issues, right? You're helping them be comfortable in their own body, which is wildly important. I know that there's a lot of boys that have that same kind of issue as well, but I know my daughter's more conscious of it than my son, for sure.
Well, it's interesting because we'll talk a little bit more about some of my unique programs, but because of the way we built these unique programs in our dance studio, we do actually tend to get more boys than most dance studios do. So that was like a real mind shift for me, because I had been used to working with young girls for such a long time. And boys definitely do have their own thing to, like all kids have like a little like learning curve to go through, right, so to speak, Right.
At my school, it's primarily boys, but we do have some girls, and there's some differences there definitely to deal with. But I find the girls definitely have more. The girls are a little tougher than the boys in general. Mm-hmm. In my school, I don't know if that holds nationwide or not, but they have a little more grit to them than the boys do sometimes.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Fantastic. So I know that before we jump into your pivot story, which I really want to talk about, because I think what you did is brilliant, and it took a lot of courage to do, and you thought about it for a long time before you actually executed on it. So I want to talk a little about that whole process. But before we jump into that, do you have any offers for the audience that you would like to give them?
Yes, absolutely. So besides being the executive director of the East Bay Dance Center, I'm also the CEO of Studio Mastery Academy, which is a business where I help other dance studio owners to do what I did in my studio, which is what we're going to be talking about today. What I did, how I did it, and how I actually believe that what I did is really innovative and revolutionary in the dance studio industry. And I wish every dance studio owner could understand some of the things that I've come to understand. So just to get people started with what I do, and also because I know a lot of people might be on this call going, well, I don't have a dance studio and I don't really care about having a more successful dance studio. But I did create a free guide. It's called the Parents Love Language Guide. It's down on the bottom of your screen. Please use www.parentslovelanguageguide.com. And I have to disclaimer, it doesn't have to do with the 4 love languages, but it does have to do with marketing to parents, which I think is important for a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses where they really fail
Absolutely.
is they fail to speak the language that parents understand. They fail to talk about the things that parents care about. Just to give you a quick example, I was working with a studio owner. I think her studio is in a small town in Virginia. And I asked her, what was one of her problems in terms of attracting more students into her business? Because obviously, that's what most businesses want. More revenue equals more students, more clients, whatever. And she said, well, nobody, my town is maxed out. Nobody else in my town wants to send their kid to dance. Then I asked her, what is the thing that you're most proud of in your studio? And she said that some of my kids became Rockettes. And so to me, there was a disconnect, because if you ask most parents, do you want your kid to become a Rockette? They're going to say no. But if you ask most parents, do you want your kid to become more confident? Do you want your kid to be able to, tackle life's challenges with some grit, with some determination, with some sense of, creativity and out of the box problem solving? These are all things that dance teach kids. So that's what this marketing guide is about. It's about taking what you do and putting it in a language that parents are going to love. So that's the love part of the love languages. All parents love their kids. This we know. So instead of us talking about a product, oh, my dance classes are, super convenient and they're at 5 o'clock and your kid's going to learn to become a Rockette. No. Your child is going to become more confident. They're going to get off their screen, so that's what the love languages guide will do. And it's a free download. So just everybody check it out and give me some feedback if you read it and you want to dialogue about it a little bit.
All right, so that's parentslovelanguageguide.com. Download your free guide, and this is the information that Bonnie learned while she was in the process of doing her pivot, right? So can you tell us a little bit about, the years coming up to this pivot, your kind of thought process behind that, and then when you finally, got the approval and went forward, and I think the approval was in your own head mostly.
Yeah, that's
but
it usually is. Yeah, so basically, I struggled with my business. As I said, I started the business out of a love for dance and not having any idea what I was getting into. And I struggled for years and years to, basically with the cash flow. I had students, I had clients, I had satisfied customers, I had lots of kids, I had a lot of fun and love and joy. And little by little, I felt like my love and joy was being eroded by the constant stress of, trying to pay the bills, basically. Running a dance studio, it's a pretty high-end product. There's a lot, it's like a big building. There's a lot of rent. There's overhead. Usually you have to have employees. And so this is just a big struggle. And I was actually at the point where I was like, I think I might have to quit. Because, though I felt I was bringing joy to so many kids and helping so many parents, I was burned out. And so I was beside myself. And I started I took a course, and in the course, they told me to do some market research with parents. And, I didn't even know what market research was, because I'm not a business person. I'm a right brain person. And, but I love talking to people. I love people. So, I started interviewing parents of my current students and asking them, some really deep dive questions as to what was important to them, what they would invest in. One of the things I realized early on was that a dance studio is a high end to run, but it's a very low end on terms of the price point, and most dance studios are just like trying to have the same pricing as the other dance studios because they want to have competitive pricing. This is all wrong, by the way.
Yes, and if we can pause there for a second, if your differentiator in your marketplace is price, you've lost the game from day one.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. If the only thing that you're going to compete on is that you're better because you're cheaper, you're done before you even get started.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, it doesn't have to be that way. It absolutely doesn't have to be that way. But the problem is that most dance studios don't really understand what it is that they're doing. So, and I don't mean don't understand what they're doing. I mean, they don't understand the value that they're giving. So this is what I became to realize as I started talking to parents. And, I actually had a parent. So this was like my turning point moment when I was in this interview with this parent and they said, oh, well, the thing that I'd pay almost anything for is if somebody would come pick my kid up. Now, here was the light bulb moment because for 9 years I had been thinking about what if I had a bus and I could go pick kids up at their school? What if there was some way to bring the kids to the dance studio? Because I had noticed that from, when I started the studio 30 years, 30 years now, but it was like 23 years at that point or whatever. People weren't with their kids in the afternoon anymore, bringing their kids into the studio because everybody's working, and so unless you have a nanny or a grandma, the kid's not going to be coming to the dance studio for an afternoon class. There's just no way the parent can get them there. So anyway, I had been toying with this idea for 9 years. And for 9 years, I had been telling myself, no, what about the insurance? What about this? How am I going to do that? Who's going to drive the bus? On and on. How you talk yourself out of something. So I just kept talking myself out of my own profitability.
But were you also planning that whole time a little bit?
Not really. I just was kind of like in this wishful thinking, that wishful thinking where you don't do anything. that wishful thinking where you don't want to take the first step, so I did after, I came to that burnout point, and I was like, it's either this or close my business, so I'll try it.
Right.
So I did. So I hired a service. I talked to people that were already had their kids in my business to see if people wanted to sign up. I started signing people up. Before I knew it, I had this whole other component to my dance studio, which was this after school program.
Right.
After a couple of years, I bought my own vehicle. I hired some other drivers. I expanded my program. I had my after school program fully integrated into my regular studio.
So you have your own bus route now for your dance. And are you considered a dance studio still, or are you a dance school now?
No, we don't have a bus route. We still use private vehicles. We bought a van for the school, and we also have a service that we use. But luckily, so this is another thing I believe. That like when you take one step, like the universe will take a step to meet you, et cetera, et cetera. So the more I kept stepping into this, the more synchronicities started happening. So as it so happens, our local school, well, let me stick with kind of the chronology of it. So a little bit more. So so I started the program, and after 4 years of having the after school program, I looked at my numbers, and I had made over $500,000 in new revenue.
A year, or in that time frame?
In that time frame. In 4 years, $500,000 in new revenue, which was,
you would not have had before.
Right, which was amazing.
So that's $125,000 a year to the bottom line, because
Correct.
You're paying rent anyway, you're paying
right.
electric anyway, you're paying somebody to sit there and do nothing for that time probably, or you were there doing nothing for that
That's
time.
what I mean. So I integrated the classes into my current classes. So classes that weren't full all of a sudden became full with the after school kids, and I still was having other kids come in. I didn't give up like ballet at 3:45 on Monday. I only brought after school kids of that age into that class. So the program was great, but not only the revenue, how can I put it? The engagement I got to have with these kids was so satisfying to my soul. It was what I had wanted to do. It was what I had set out to do in terms of bringing life skills and confidence to kids with dance, because we were seeing these kids every single day, after school. We were playing with them. We were talking with them. We were doing art with them. We were dancing with them. And so it was such a full, rich experience of really being involved in these kids' lives. And then we built the most loyal, I have the most loyal fan base of parents probably in the world. I'm not kidding. Like, everybody thanks me repeatedly, daily, for what I'm doing, because we have completely made ourselves and our clientele aware of the value that we bring to their kids. And so this to me is, it's not just about the after school program. It's about, if you are a dance educator, if you care about kids, you are such a valuable person. Never doubt yourself that you are serving a great purpose in life. Now, the issue is how to get paid. How to get paid what you're worth. So that's what the after school program did for me. It allowed me to create something that was so valuable for parents. Actually, I looked at the numbers on it, and it was 110%, no, 1,000% profit over what I was charging before. The product was that much more valuable, and people were very happy to pay for it, and it markets itself.
And a fraction of the time, right? Because you were making, you had doubled your revenue, right, in 4 years, basically, and you didn't have any more resources that you had to add, some buses and things like that, some operational expenses, but no big capital expense that you had to do this, right?
Well, after a while, so the first year, so, you were talking about $125,000 a year. So this is why I built my other program, Studio Mastery Academy, because I realized that I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, just like starting a dance studio. You don't know what you don't know. So creating an after school program, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know how to get reliable, good, transportation. I didn't know how to, create a better bottom line, but I learned how to do that. At first it was kind of disruptive in my studio, suddenly having this other program, but I learned how to integrate it. I learned how to train my staff. I learned all these things. So I share that with other dance studio owners, because there are so many people out there that are just where I was, that came into the studio with a feeling of joy and love and something they wanted to share, and basically love people, love kids, love dance, are creative people, and they're just burned out. They're burned out with this grind of business and like trying to, create enough money to pay the bills, basically.
Absolutely.
So that is now my joy to share that with other people. The Love Languages Guide is just a kind of a fun little free gift, but it has a lot of really juicy information in there that people can start using in their own studios to just start to make themselves and make their clients aware of how what they do is going to impact their kids' lives forever.
Right. And we talk all the time on Clicks and Bricks about knowing your client, right? Who your client is. And in this particular case, it's a client that's not directly related, right? Because the client is actually, you think it's the kid or the child that you're teaching these things, but they're not. They are the client, but they're not the buyer, right?
Exactly.
So this is a scenario where you really have to know the buyer's objectives and what they're really going to do, because they're buying for their kid. Because you can't even advertise to anybody under 13 on the online, right?
Right.
You're not allowed to target them at all. Right. So targeting the parents is where you need to be, because they got the money anyway.
Right. Absolutely. It's understanding what parents really want for their kids and really seeing how we really totally fit that bill. And again, this isn't just dance studios. I believe this is anybody who is doing, activities for kids, because in this day and age, kids need to have real-time activities with adults who are caring and understanding and disciplined and are going to give them the structure.
And if you're a studio, if you're a dance studio, gym, anything that's trying to market to kids, inside Facebook Marketing Business Manager, it is really, really easy to target people with kids that have birthdays coming up, people like, you can really narrow down who you're targeting. You can put that ad just to parents at a 2-mile radius that go to that school, right? So it's really easy to do now. It's a lot harder to do 9 years ago when you started doing this. You had to go to the schools and really a lot more hustle. But today, with Facebook and Instagram ads, the demographics are so good. If you need help with that, let us know. But it is wildly easy to get right in front of who your buyer is today. But first, you have to know who that is. And this www.parentslovelanguageguide.com will help you if you're marketing to if you're marketing to the parents as the buyer for the child, right?
Right. Because you have to know the language. You have to know the right words to say. Right.
Because, and a lot of that's going to fall into not just a brick and mortar business, but if you're selling a product to a kid, I would assume, right? Or not to a kid, but to the parent of a child, right? So
absolutely.
It's really, really important stuff. Thank you for putting that together.
Oh, sure, absolutely. It was my joy and my pleasure to do that. So
that should help a lot of people out, because that disconnect of the buyer persona is really hard to overcome for a lot of business owners. They think they know who their buyer is because that's who they're dealing with every day. But sometimes if you just do the small little angle change or small little pivot and try a different audience, worlds can really open up to you pretty quickly, right?
Right, and it's a win-win-win too. Like, that's the thing we need to remember. We need to remember this isn't about selling. Like, I don't call it selling. I don't use the word sell, because we're actually making something available to somebody. You're making somebody aware that this is available. And that's why I think I have so many people thanking me every day, because I have helped parents to connect to something that they see the benefit it's having for their child, and so if you had something that could help somebody, but they didn't know about it, what good is that?
You could even say that if you didn't tell the world about your product, that you would be selfish.
Correct.
Right? You'd be hiding this, because if you're a parent, you've got kids, and I am in this boat, and I also teach children. So to see a kid go from not having self-confidence to having self-confidence is one of the greatest experiences on the planet that I've got to experience, at least, right? So it's good work that you're doing for the children, but I think in business also, there's so many business owners struggling and trying to find new things to do that they should be able to find some inspiration in what you've done. Ready to quit, ready to hang out the towel, have this crazy idea of, buying school buses and shipping kids all over the country and insurance and the liability just sounds crazy. But when you really dive into it, you accept this is what I'm going to do, things start to open up for you.
Right? Exactly. Like, that's how the universe, that's how it works. It's a win-win-win. Like, I really strongly believe that, do something for somebody else. Like, focus on what you have that is a benefit, and again, like, this can apply to any business. If you're having trouble marketing your business, then either you don't connect with who your client is, who your client is going to be, or you don't understand why what you have they need, so you have to understand, like, why what you have they need, how is this going to change their life. Once you understand that, it's kind of like easy to get out of bed in the morning and go for it, because you're like, hey, somebody needs this. Right.
I have an obligation in life now. I've got to do this for people, right?
Exactly.
And they want it. I've told them they can have it, and now they want it. And they're paying me to do it. I got to go do it, right?
Absolutely.
So that's fantastic. Great work on the pivot, on the idea, on the challenges that you had across the board. Now, we've already talked a little bit about times that you were ready to give up and quit, and times of adversity, and we're coming out of a pandemic. We live in a world where I think it's 74% of new businesses fail within the first 2 years, and fail or shut down. And Clicks and Bricks has our goal is to reduce that by just 1% if we can, by helping business owners understand this adversity stuff. You were ready to throw in the towel. You decided not to. You made a pivot to change. Do you have any tips or tricks that you use for yourself on overcoming that adversity and really pushing yourself to that next level, and getting from a mindset of, oh, I want to quit, to where, oh shoot, I can do this, I can take on this challenge and really knock it out of the park? Can you tell us a little bit about that process for you, and if you've got any specific tips or tricks that our audience could use to help them through times of struggle as well?
Yes, absolutely. So, the worst was yet to come. I didn't know, because, I had the after school program going, things were going well. I built a couple of other programs in my studio. I built a membership program. I increased my profitability with that. And I was started this other business helping studio owners. So, life was pretty good, right? Well, I didn't know we were going to go through a pandemic. Well, I actually had death, a plague, and a fire in 2020. My mom, who I was her caregiver, and she lived with me, she passed in May. The pandemic had started in March, which I thought was going to be very short-lived. We had to close our after-school program and send the kids home because the schools closed. And I was like, oh, it's going to be a couple of weeks. And we put the kids all on Zoom, and we were running dance classes on Zoom. It's really hard to run an after-school program on Zoom, but we were doing it, and as I said, we had such loyal clients that people continued to pay their bills. We reduced people's bills, and we gave them some loyalty bonuses and stuff like that, and we gave people the option, but most people decided to stay with us because they wanted to support us through the pandemic, which was great. So we had the pandemic. My mom passed, which, if anybody's cared for a parent and lost a parent, that's probably one of the biggest ones you're ever going to face. And then a month after that, my building caught on fire. So I was displaced out of my home, my business, struggling in the middle of COVID, didn't have a place to do our classes, couldn't do our classes except on Zoom. Wow. How did I keep going? So, I want to say that, first of all, this whole experience of building the after-school program and helping other people build after-school programs totally put me into a different mindset. My mindset now is not, can I do this? It's, how can I do this? So that is a question I ask myself now. Like with the after-school program, it wasn't like, can I get the bus? Can I get the insurance? It was like, how am I going to do it? How? So I started asking myself, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to conduct my business? I don't have a building. You know, how am I going to bring kids into the studio when we have COVID restrictions? So one of the great things that happened when we became an after-school program is we became licensed exempt childcare. That's another whole story I won't get into, but we actually proved to the state of California that we're not doing childcare, legally, the legal definition of childcare, but we're able to have kids come in for an extended program. So in any case, this allowed us to start a distance learning camp as a small pot of kids. So this was something I had never thought about doing. I didn't really know how to do. I could barely run Zoom myself. And suddenly I'm helping kindergartners get onto their Zoom classes. So we offered this to parents, a small group of parents, because we were only allowed to have a small group of kids. We were in rented space. And we started bringing people in. And sure enough, it was the same experience. It was like letting kids do their distance learning classes, then get up and do dance classes, then have art activities, and be involved in, bonding experiences. And we took 12 families all the way through, the whole distance learning thing, a whole year, and helped their kids, make it to the next grade without the parents killing them at home.
Right. So this is the distance learning is instead of going to school, they can come to your studio as a small group. Correct. So okay. So which I guess is just easier to manage the smaller group of skip tracing and all that stuff.
Right. But. So the mindset was like, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. What can I do? What can I do? Like, I know my mission is to serve families. I know that that's my mission. I know my mission is to help kids to develop life skills, to be happy, to thrive, to be joyful, to experience the joy of art and dance and all this other stuff. How can I do this? I can do it on Zoom. I could do it for this small group, and I just built the program around what it is that I can do. And so this is the mindset. It's a mindset of service. I have something valuable. I can't give up. I had people tell me, oh my God, Bonnie, you lost your building, you lost your mom. You're almost retired. I mean, I am retirement age. Okay, I hate to reveal this on camera, but I am retirement age. And I am collecting my Social Security, happily. However, I'm never going to stop working because I have something valuable. It would, like you said, it would be selfish. It would be selfish to lay there in the bed going, poor me, oh well.
Well, and what would you do anyway if you're retired?
And what do you do anyway? How much Netflix can you watch?
Yeah. So, I mean, you'd probably still be dancing at retired, so you might as well do it with the kids.
Probably, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, yep. So it's that question. How can I continue to be of service in my chosen way?
Right. So I think it's important to ask yourself that to change your mindset. So if you're a person today that says, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? I think changing your mind frame from can I to how can I? How do I get this accomplished is a huge step. I add one more thing because I've got a crazy brain, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, is really also stop for a second and say, do I want that? Right? Because sometimes we have these ideas as entrepreneurs and we just start running, right? Like this whole process of can I get so weak in our brain that we're like, oh, I can do anything as long as I just start working on it. So, but sometimes we start working on the wrong stuff because we have these random ideas, and I think we're a little ADD. So we like to run in a bunch of different directions. So I think it's important to change your mindset from a can I do this to how do I accomplish this goal, or how do I overcome this hurdle, instead of a can I, like this question in your head.
Well, and I think
can I do it? You can.
Yeah,
right?
The other thing that's important that goes along with that, which I talk about in the guide, is out-of-the-box thinking. So for me, out-of-the-box thinking was like the most important thing, besides the can I, how can I do this? How can I do this gives you the courage. to do something
Right.
that's out of the box. But how do you get to have an innovative idea in the first place? Because like I said, most dance studios are stuck in this thing like competitive pricing. Okay, I have to do competitive pricing. Okay, I have to run dance classes from like 4 to 6 and 6 to 8, and then I have this time slot on Saturday, and this is the only way that I can bring kids in, et cetera, et cetera. So out of the box thinking is like, you can do anything. Like if you say, I'm going to create a membership program for an example, which I did, which was another innovative idea that I did in my dance studio that most dance studios would like to try, but many of them don't know how to do it. And I figured out how to do it. And, a membership program, it works like a gym, and it's very convenient for parents, and it's actually easier for parents because it's month to month and they're not committing to like a whole school year or a whole semester. But, I built in bonuses so that I was able to actually market it at a higher price point. So, it's not comparative to anything else. So people can't say, oh, well, the studio down the street is charging less, because they're not giving you what I'm giving you. So it's really using this out of the box thinking to create, as you said, something that you really want to do, something that's in alignment with, I wouldn't have created something like, the Zoom school was kind of out there, because it really wasn't in my mission to help kids learn to do classes on Zoom. But it is part of my mission to help kids to succeed in life. And I was like, this is what kids need right now. They are going to fail at school if they cannot get to these classes, and if when they get to the classes, they're not engaged with the classes, they're going to fail. I had kids that couldn't read. They were kindergartners, and they would come in and they'd say, and it was hilarious because I'd say, okay, get your computer out. They'd get their computer out and they'd be sitting there, and I'd say, well, okay, are you going to join your class? They go, oh, Miss Bonnie, the teacher's not there. And then I look at their screen and it said, please click here to join your Zoom meeting. But they can't read.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. Yes. Fantastic. So moving on, we're running a little bit short on time. We had some technical difficulties, and I apologize about that. Sure. So wrap up this show. Obviously, you're an innovative person. You've learned to think outside the box. You've completely changed not only your studio, but the way a studio can be ran. And you came up with all this on your own. You've been, inundated with technology. What do you see your industry as far as technology over the next, in the future? 1 year out, 5 years out, 10 years out. What do you think is going to happen to your industry with the new technology that's coming out? Just across the board, just your foresight, and if you could really rub that crystal ball for us and tell us what kind of crazy stuff might happen in the future.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you what's not going to happen. Technology is not going to replace live dance. I think there was a big fear in our industry, and I think there is still a fear in our industry because everything went on Zoom, right? And people had no idea that you could learn dance on Zoom. I didn't know you could teach dance on Zoom. I learned how to teach dance on Zoom, and I think it is great because you're able to engage people. Let's say kids have to stay at home, because they're sick, or we've had kids, even since we've opened up after the pandemic, sometimes kids have to quarantine at home so they can join on Zoom. It really made like our staff meetings easier because people didn't used to want to come because they had to commute on a Saturday. Now they can just tune in from home and be in their pajamas if they want to, so I think in terms of convenience, Zoom and, on-screen learning experiences, like we created Google Sites for our kids so that they can just have like a little extra, that's like a bonus for our membership program that you can, have some like, short videos that your kids can do at home and consume at home. So I think, that's going to continue to be, developed in our industry. I think there's probably going to be some new platforms coming along. I mean, I'm not a software person, so I can't really say what they're going to be, or who's going to develop them or who they're going to belong to. But I think there is going to be more innovative stuff that's going to be more dance friendly, because Zoom is more like a meeting technology. And I think, one thing I've seen that's like really cool that I'd like to see in the dance world, I've seen it like virtual choirs developing, where everybody's in different parts of the world and they're all singing together. I'd love to see a little bit of that, like with dance. Like that'd be so fun to have, different studios around the world all, dancing together at the same time and creating videos.
Have you seen the new interactive feature inside Zoom for the large meetings?
Tell me more.
So inside Zoom, if you go to the interactive mode, you know how you can change your backgrounds?
Yeah.
If you're in a group meeting, you can go to interactive, and it'll be like a classroom, and you can put everybody in their own little chairs inside the classroom, or a stadium, and you can put everybody in their own little seat in the stadium. So I can see a day where there's a virtual stage, and there's a dance troupe, each dancing in their own studio, and you see them all dancing together.
We participated in a project for International Dance Day this last year where it was coordinated by a group I'm a part of, Dance Studio Owners Association, and all these different studios learned the same dance and they all submitted footage, and we created like a group video that was super fun. So
That's really neat.
I can see more of that happening. I can see kids engaging with other kids in other parts of the world. I'd love to see some, not just dancing, talking about life, talking about school, talking about climate change. Our generation that we're raising right now has some serious work ahead of them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But they're going to have a lot of cool technology coming out with them too. I would encourage you to start looking at some of the VR stuff, and even I think VR is already dead. I think augmented reality is going to be where the future is, and I think augmented reality for teaching is going to be a huge move forward. I agree with you though. I don't think brick and mortar is ever going away for stuff like dance and exercise. People need community. They need to be together. We're social creatures. We need that. It's in our blood. And too much virtual, I think it can be overkill, right? We need human interaction, or if we don't, then the species is just going to die.
Right. We need to guide the kids. That's why, like I was kind of a technophobe, I have to admit, but because I'm not from that generation, but I have to stay ahead of my kids, or at least know what they're talking about, and kind of guide them, to like, yes, let's use it for this, but let's not use it for that. Let's not replace talking with being on the screen, but let's, instead of necessarily having a recital that's only us in the recital, we can include people from around the world. Your grandma can watch from New York. That's a great use of technology.
Yes. Bonnie, thank you so much for your time today. I had a blast. I'm sorry we have to cut this a little bit short because I've only got a couple minutes and I've got another interview coming on. But thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate it. We've got about 30 seconds if you want to leave anything for the audience before we go.
Well, I just want to say, know what you have, know how valuable it is, and know that if you do not offer it to your right client, it's not going to happen. So, find a way, ask yourself, how can I do this? Do some out of the box thinking, and just enjoy the process of being of service with what it is that you have to offer. I'm standing there with you. If I can do it, you can do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ken.
That's it for today's show, folks. Thank you for joining us. That's Clicks and Bricks. Get to work.